All you gotta do is just speak. One word is enough, and I'm no longer so rough. I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me know what's that me if it could flee. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi hide like a thief in the night. Me I fi get out outside.
That now go up.
Hi, this is Tom Hall.
I fi take away myself. I have to utilize I will. Shorty I leave it right. I said, yeah, I find you very hard to resist. But this relationship I'm gonna do.
Greetings, kings and queens. Welcome to another Real Stuff podcast. I am Franco. We'll be linking up with Flavius in a few minutes. But today is a special show, a special broadcast. This morning we have the president of the Garifuna Nation, Egbert, Higinio. And then we have the Minister of Land, Joe Guerrero. And of course, Queen Lubafu will be joining us. Cynthia, Ellis, Topsy will also be joining us from the Garifuna Nation. So sit and stay, don't go nowhere. I'm going to get Flavius and then we'll be right back. In the meantime, if you got to get your tea, your coffee, whatever drink that you consume this time of the morning, go ahead, because I have some music for you in the meantime.
Through the door, take away ourselves.
Hi, this is Tom Hall, and I'm inviting you to hang out with Flavius and Franco on the Real Stuff podcast. They're such great company.
Ba do ba do ba da de da ba do ba da do ba do ba da de. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. Black is my kin, I ain't apologizing. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. Black is the sin, I ain't apologizing. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. Black is my kin, I ain't apologizing. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. If black is the sin, I ain't apologizing. Captured us from our homeland, sold us into a foreign land. What woe, what pain, what misery. 400 years of slavery, shackles, scars, and degrading. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. If black is the sin, I ain't apologizing. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. Da 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 da. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. Black is my kin, I ain't apologizing. Color of my eyes, color of my skin. If black is the sin, I ain't apologizing. Robbed us of our
Tarsha Williams, Black Skin. We got with us Flavius this morning. How you doing, Flavius?
Good morning, Franco. Good morning, listeners. I'm doing well. Okay. Bright sunshine outside.
So you have beautiful, bright sunshine this morning, right?
Yeah, man. I don't know if it lasts all.
I know you've been kicking up a storm over the sun of lately, sir.
It is glory. Yeah, well, they say the sun is good for you always, so you know.
So I forgive you props. For that. Bigging up the sun all the time.
Oh yeah. We love the sun and we love the land and the river. Oh yeah.
So I see this morning, how is everything, people sucking up the things so far this morning about the new measures?
Well, people realize that why it is put in place, why it has to happen, and and most importantly, why they have to comply. There's no two ways about it.
True.
You have to contain, not because we are getting a few vaccines now. We have to contain this thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people, the dying rate is going up.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we don't want. And, hospital beds, hospitals are running like 150% capacity.
Mm-hmm.
What they were saying, they are having now to put COVID patient in less than ideal locations.
Okay.
The quality of care can't be what it should be.
I see some pictures coming out of Spanish Town Hospital and it don't look good either. So I know that's going to be a big concern.
I think they are opening up a field hospital by the Spanish Town Hospital this week, probably yesterday. So they are getting more bed space down there.
Need more than bed space. You need more than bed space, boss.
They need it. But remember, it's Spanish Town, hospital. First thing you have to remember that St. Catherine is by far, the biggest parish.
Mm-hmm.
And when you throw a Portmore dormitory community into that, which is 250,000 people or whatever, it becomes ridiculous.
Well, as I say, the people at Jamaica realize, the effect of what is going on. So it's just a lick the Caribbean, just a lick Jamaica, and they're seeing the severity of this disease. But I don't want to linger too much because we're going to have
We're not going to linger, but our hospital plans have not been upgraded in so many years. We need more hospitals and we need the ones that we have to be upgraded. In a major way. And this is just highlighting that.
Aye. Anyway, we got to go because we get calls, so we got to go.
Yeah, man.
All right, so let's hit up the Did You Know and then we can just go right down into it, okay? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, man.
Walking on sand and holding your hand, feel like a tourist in my own homeland, enjoying the bright, the warm sunlight. Oh my God, what a beautiful sight in my own home.
Yes, so this time every morning we have Did You Know? So Flavius, take us away with the Did You Know?
Did you know
All right.
Over the years, Caribbean women have put their shoulders to the wheel, studied night and day, honed their skills, and implemented with a passion. Today we present Dr. the Honorable Barbara Gloudon, OJ, OD, DLIT, journalist, communication consultant, playwright. Barbara Gloudon, OD, OJ, IOJ, was born in Malvern, St. Elizabeth in Jamaica in 1935. She's a Jamaican journalist, author, playwright, and theatre chair. After a distinguished career as a journalist, where she was honored with 2 separate awards from the Press Association of Jamaica, and as an officer in the Order of Distinction, Gloudon began working as a scriptwriter for the Little Theatre Movement, the LTM, and writing radio drama. She hosted a radio talk show for 30 years and became chair of the LTM. Having received numerous awards and honors, Gloudon was granted the Order of Jamaica in 1992 and in 2012 became a Fellow of the Institute of Jamaica. Gloudon has received a number of honors, including national honors, for work in theatre and journalism, which began not long into her career. In 1964 and in 1968, she was recognized by the Press Association of Jamaica. In 1975, she received the Order of Distinction Officer Class for her contribution to journalism in Jamaica. Gloudon was awarded the Order of Jamaica in 1992, and she received an Honorary Doctor of Letters from the University of the West Indies, Mona, an Honorary Doctor of Fine Arts from the Sewanee University, Tennessee, USA. She also served on various communications-related committees, such as the International Program for the Development of Communication, during which time she served as rapporteur. In 2013, she was inducted in the Jamaica Press Association Hall of Fame. A year prior, she became a Fellow of the Institute of Jamaica. Let us now take a look at some of the things Gloudon has done and achieved. She joined the Jamaica Daily Cleaner and worked as library assistant, then promoted to sub-editor. Editor children-owned newspaper, features editor all Gleaner publications, editor Star newspaper, and she was the first woman to hold that post. Columnist, Jamaica Observer, and public affairs commentator. In tourism, she joined the tourist board for 3-year assignment as Deputy Director of Tourism in charge of local and international communication strategy. During course of assignment, traveled extensively to promote Jamaica's tourism industry. Communication consultancy. She started her own communications agency in 1982, specializing in programs concerned with women's issue, community development, and interpersonal skills. She was consultant to the ILO UII project for the development of women in trade union, and wrote and edited quarterly newsletter associated with the project. Taught communication skills in associated workshops throughout the Caribbean region. communications consultant to the Joint Trade Unions Research Development Center, coordinating all aspects of communication associated with the center's activities, and wrote and edited quarterly newsletter associated with the center for distribution locally and regionally. Communications, consultant to the Anglican Diocese Jamaica, editor of the Diocesan Quarterly newspaper, formerly Jamaica Churchman, now the Anglican. Producer of weekly 15 minutes diocesan radio program, Think on These Things. As a lecturer, frequent resource person for workshops, seminars associated with women issues and community development, has been resource person for Caribbean Conference of Churches, World Conference of Churches, United Theological College of the West Indies, and the Women in Development Unit 1 WAND of the UWI. Radio commentator, she hosted 3 times weekly on RGR's hotline calling program dealing with social issues. Writing activities, columnist for over 20 years in the Star newspaper with award-winning column Stella. Selection of material from the column published in book by Institute of Jamaica. Publications under the title Stella Say. At present, columnist for the Jamaica Observer. Winner Journalist Award, Best Opinion Column, Observer 1999. Winner 3 separate gold medals for feature writing. Contribution to a variety of publications, writing on issues of art and culture, as well as social commentary on the Jamaica development. Playwright, author of 21 LTM pantomimes, co-author of 3. Currently working on publication of a selection of pantomime scripts for use in schools. Collection of pantomime scripts by or acquired by Eastern Connecticut State University as part of their West Indian section of college library. Wrote long-running radio serial Wrong Move, broadcast 3 times weekly on RGR with a listenership of over 250,000 at time when it ended. Writer of assorted other works for stage, including satirical reviews and works for children. Lifetime Achievement Award for consistency in contribution to Jamaica Theatre Awards by Octoboy Foundation. Gleaner Awards for Arts and Culture 2006. Author. She had authored these: In the Land of Manners, a children's storybook. Stella Say, a collection of her columns for the Daily Gleaner. Her articles are also included in A Tapestry of Jamaica, the best of skywriting. She contributed the foreword for Enid Donaldson's The Real Taste of Jamaica. Her play Angus Manning is included in Emancipation Movements, a compilation of contemporary Caribbean plays compiled and edited by Raul Gibbons, published by the University of the West Indies Open Campus, St. Augustine. Her affiliation represents Jamaica on Council of the International Programme on the Development of Communication, IPDC, of UNESCO, for which she was 4 times elected rapporteur, an unprecedented achievement. Former director of the Women's Center Foundation, a project to assist pregnant schoolgirls to continue education. Chairperson Liquor Theatre Movement to Jamaica's oldest theatre company. Former director of ICD Group of Companies. Director Multicare Foundation for Advancement of Inner City Youth. Former member Alcan Influential Person Advisory Panel concerned with the establishing links between bauxite industry and the wider society. Deputy Chairman, Institute of Jamaica Council. Member of the board, Eddermanley College for Visual and Performing Arts. Member of African Literature Studies Association, USA. Life member and trustee, Press Association of Jamaica. Member, International Media Women's Foundation, USA. Member of International Peer Rights Association. Diocese Lay Reader, Anglican Church in Jamaica and Grand Cayman. Awards and honors: Order of Jamaica for National Service through Journalism and Culture. Order of Distinction, Journalism and Culture. Bronze Musgrave Medal for Culture Contribution. Institute of Jamaica Centenary Medal. Best of St. Best Award for St. Elizabeth Development Homecoming Board. Public Affairs Award, West Indian Foundation, Inc., Connecticut. Doctor of Letters, University of the West Indies, Mona. She's married to Ansel Gloudon, a Trinidadian, and has 2 daughters and 1 son. And that's your Did You Know for today.
So in case you didn't know, now you know. Getting ready to link up with members from the Garifuna Nation. Going to be here talking to us this morning about land rights. Yes, so we're going to be linking up with this morning with the president of the Garifuna, Mr. Egbert, Higinio, the Minister of Land, Joe Guerrero, and of course, none other than Queen Lubafu. You know her as Cynthia Ellis Topsy. We call her Queen Lubafu. Did You Know is brought to you courtesy of Slowly Jamaica, uniquely Caribbean. So in case you didn't know, now you know.
Catholic, Baptist, or Pentecostal, the house of Jah is there, have no fear. Walk right in and get your share. I'm walking on sand, I'm holding your hand. Feel like a tourist in my own homeland. In my
homeland. Yes, Flavius. Let me hear what you got to say before we link up with members from the Garifuna Nation this morning. Talk to me, Flavius.
I'm just saying that I have been honored to and have the distinct pleasure in meeting the lady.
Okay.
And a few times and spoken to her,
All right.
Of course, you all know she's the mother of one of our team members.
Of course.
Anya. Yeah.
Big ups this morning, Miss Gloudon and Anya.
Oh, yes. But you can see she's a very special lady, A lot of work. Her work is so huge,
Got to be a special lady. Got to be a special lady.
Oh, yes.
All right. So I'm going to play Victory. And Victory is by the professor out of Ghana.
Yes.
And then we're going to bring in members from the Garifuna Nation this morning.
Professor Frederick.
All right.
Victory. 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 I felt the cold wind blow from far away, and the sound of a tumbine bata, aziko, Jembe and all the African drums says victory. Yes. Victory in our hands at last. The voice of our ancestors are the voice of the people. We cry from the grave of slavery. Our hands are loose from being tired, and our mouths are free from sin. Now we can shout victory. Victory in our hands at last. The red, gold.
Okay. Greetings, kings and queens, members of the Garifuna Nation this morning. Cynthia.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I see Egbert just joining us. Morning, Egbert.
Egbert isn't there.
No, this is morning.
Good morning.
Oh, he is here.
He's here now. And who else we're missing in the room this morning? Is Joe here? Joe is there?
Yes, Joe is here.
All right.
We can hear you well, Joe. You got get closer to the mic.
Yeah, Wellington.
So thank you for I'm here. Wellington is here as well.
So everybody's here so far who have been given the invitation. All right. Flavius.
Morning, Ellington. Yes. Welcome to the Real Stuff Podcast. Great to have you. And I'm hearing that you have a landmark ruling that you will apprise the people, the Garifuna Nation and others about what happened just now and how that impacts on the Garifuna Nation going forward. So maybe Egbert would like to start it off.
Sure, Brother Flavius. Thank you for inviting the Garifuna Nation back to Jamaica via Real Stuff Podcast. The issue is a continuum. Right, the issue is a continuum for the Garifuna Nation. The Garifuna Nation that's been existing for many, many years, and we are fighting for our human rights and land rights. Well, I'll start off with that and hand it over to Joe in terms of what is the landmark issue we are trying to pursue.
Thank you, Egbert. This is Joe Guerrero. And the landmark ruling, which was by the Honorable Judge Abdulai Conteh from Sierra Leone, who was serving in Belize as our Chief Justice. He had a case where the Maya people of Belize were suing the government of Belize for violating their rights to land. The government did not recognize their right to own land collectively as an indigenous people. And the ruling came out that Judge Conteh said in 2007, I believe it was, that indeed indigenous people have the same land rights. In fact, he affirmed that the rights had already existed for the collective, for the people to be a collective landowner as indigenous people. And it was the first time that the courts in Belize had recognized and affirmed the rights of people to live collectively as indigenous people, that is. That is that because they were in Belize, just as the Garifuna, prior to being colonized, that the colonization did not preclude their rights to own the land that they were living on. So in other words, the British came and took over the territory where we and the Maya were living. Now, when they come, They don't own the land that you had been living on for all those years. You own the land. But the way the system was set up, it ignored the rights of those people who were already living there and wanted to sell those people land they had been living on before they came. And this is the ridiculous nature that Belize was perpetuating onto the Garifuna and the Maya. So Judge Conteh's ruling told the government, no, these people own this land prior to the border of the Belize settlement moving from one river to the Sarstoon River to include these people. When it moved from Sibun River to the Sarstoon River, the border, then we became indigenous because we were then now living within the borders of a colonized nation. And that's how, for the purposes of the International Labor Organization Convention 169, it's defined. That's how indigenous people are defined. If a colonial power comes and includes you within their borders, now you're indigenous. Okay? So indigenous people have rights. When those borders come to include them, they have rights. And one of the rights is you already own your land. That's one of the rights Judge Conteh said that you had. And so that made it a landmark ruling that collectively people own rights and they didn't have to get individual titles. But interestingly enough, gentlemen and Cynthia, interestingly enough, the government of Belize has never, ever made laws that give collective title to indigenous people. So what does this mean? The government of Belize, because they didn't have the laws, the law is a tool, an instrument that allows government to take each action. Okay, they never had an act that says the government may give license or title to indigenous people. They only had titles for communal living, which is the Mennonites, or could be the Asians, from the Asian countries recently. But they never had title laws for people who were living there before they came. And thus, because the government felt like, oh, well, since we don't have such laws, we can give away this land. No. Judge Conteh's ruling told them that even prior to them bringing their border over to include these people, those people owned their land and they had rights. So this is where we are, and that's why it was such a landmark ruling. It was the first time the rights of the collective indigenous people were recognized.
So that case, Flavius, just to reiterate, was for the Mayans, right?
Yes.
Now we, the Garifuna, because we are indigenous, we are claiming the same rights. And for the government of Belize to recognize that we, Garifuna indigenous, will assume those same rights or demand those same rights be applied to us. Right, Joe? Can
I say that what's even, with any court case, that's why they call them landmark. If a ruling is made that favors the complainant, then the principle that is ruled on, it doesn't matter which individual, you can switch Maya for Garifuna or Chinese or whatever. The principle remains the same, that because you were here before they moved the border to include your territory, then you too are afforded those same rights. So yes, you can have a name on the case like the Maya land rights case, but all the principles involved in the ruling applies to everyone.
Right.
So what has happened recently now, like yesterday or this week or whatever? What has happened?
Well, I'll let Cynthia talk to that because she's on the front line.
Thank you, Flavius and Franco and the brothers on the team, how we function as a team. And I just wanted to reiterate the point that the president made about Garifuna Nation, and what makes us even very more powerful, not better than, and that we as a nation, for one thing, we were here long before the colonizers came here, meaning in the region. So our experience of nation is very different from these established structures, of governance. So it's like we had a conference recently where the Cherokee Nation shared with us how the indigenous people, the Native Americans in Americas, were violated extensively. So it is nothing new. What is new is our articulation of who we are as a nation. And therefore, it doesn't matter where our people are in the world right now. We are a nation. It's not just a geographic. It's not a concept. It's a reality. However, because of pragmatic purposes, we need to interface with the existing structures. We give to Caesar what is Caesar's, so to speak. So a number of Garifuna leaders who preceded the most recent renaissance of the Garifuna Nation were aware of these land right issues, and for whatever reason did not catch up, or let's say drop the ball in terms of articulation of our nationhood and dealing with the land rights issue in a very assertive way. So a number of our leaders, whom we don't have any difficulty with, have met with this new government. We have an indigenous rights minister, Dolores Ramos, and they have been meeting with her and coming up with projects and proposals, which are excellent. However, the Garifuna Nation decided we want to establish a deeper relationship, a deeper communication, and we function as a nation. And the major presentation of our credentials needed to be with the Prime Minister. So, which is what I did on behalf of the Garifuna Nation. Went to the Prime Minister's office yesterday to express our values, principles, and concerns, as Brother Joe just shared. Brother Joe is our Minister of Lands. And so yesterday we had a very wonderful exchange to establish that fact that we are available as a nation to facilitate an informative space where we can address a number of the issues which have been distorted because of misinformation, lack of education of our people. So we are joining the Maya in terms of educating not only ourselves, but the world at large about what is at stake. So I'm very thankful and delighted that the Prime Minister received us well, and the dialogue is going to continue with a press conference that we will be holding tomorrow. So we're very excited with the renaissance that's taking place, the outreach from other nations, including the Caribbean nations, and our connection with Jamaica, the Maroons. We are very excited about Professor Wellington, who is here, who's going to give some of the background and history of the Garifuna, which we realize that people know very little. And honestly, we ourselves as Garifuna people have lost that information. And so it's a process that we're honestly going through in this movement, which has a parallel. The movement that began long before we were born, and the movement of interfacing with these structures that exist on the world scene.
Flavius, I think we lost Joe.
No, man, I'm here.
But Joe?
Okay.
Okay, let me see if
Joe, I think he's off.
Perhaps
I have a weak signal. Wellington is here, though.
Yeah, Joe is gone, so Mr. Wellington is there.
So,
Yeah.
speak to us.
You can go ahead, Mr. Wellington.
Yeah, especially with the recent his interjection with the history that will be aired on the University of the West Indies website.
Right.
Welcome, gentlemen. Can everybody hear
Welcome.
me?
Yes, yeah, welcome, sir. Welcome.
It is indeed an honor and a great pleasure to be here to discuss our trials and tribulations with you all, because we have all been through the same struggle and it's a daily fight. Well, one of the things about Article 3 is a very powerful article, Article 3 and Article 26 of the UN Declaration Rights of the Indigenous People of the World. Because Article 3 deals with self-determination, that we have the right to determine how we want to be governed, how we are going to be governing ourselves, our people. And then Article 26 deals with the land, the rights to our lands. And we all know that what colonization did was to upset nationhood and nation states. Prior to the Europeans coming into the Caribbean and many parts of the world, our people had their own nations, their own type of government, their own way of life, and they came for no justifiable reason with armed force and engaged war and declared war against us. And we fought the good fight. But for us, in 1796, after years of fighting against the Spanish, the French, and the British, we were removed from our native land, Urume, now known as St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and taken to the island of Balisa off the coast of St. Vincent. We know now, under new evidence that we acquired, that in one day, 1,000 of our people were killed by the British troops who revolted on that island. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
The estimated number of people that were taken to that island is about 5,000. So it could have been more, because after the ordeal in Balisao, only about 2,500 of our people remain out of that total 5,000. And the British kept saying that most of our people died because of the conditions on the island that they had to endure. But that was just an excuse for the massacre and genocide that took place on the island. The remains of our people are still buried there. And if we go to Balisao today, some of the remains are resurfacing on the top of the sand, like wild animals, and just not even a proper burial was given to them. When we go to the forced removal, they removed us from St. Vincent and they took us to a place that they were squatting, Rotan, the Bay Islands of Honduras, because if you know where the Bay Islands is located, it is at a very strategic point for the British naval fleet while they were doing their international pirating. So all the Spanish vessels that were coming from the southern part of the Americas, the British were waiting them right there, and they would sink those vessels, take their loot and everything, and they would move people back and forth between the Bay Islands to Jamaica and Cayman Islands, because the people in Cayman Islands and the people in the Bay Islands are former British, Irish, and Scottish citizens that came there to live. And Jamaica at the time was the entire capital of the British West Indies. So no matter which country you lived in, everything had to go through Jamaica. We also know that slaves were brought from Jamaica to Bluefields, Nicaragua, when they established the Mosquito Coast. So, and Jamaicans were moved from Jamaica to different parts of the Caribbean as well. The life in Rotan was not a good life. Our people did not like it because we knew that we were done wrong. So we asked the British for permission to leave. And we left from there early. we know that some Garifuna left Rotan in the late 1900s, so probably 1797, 98, shortly after they arrived, and went to Belize, cut logwood and mahogany. And then the largest contingent of Garifunas landed in Belize City on the 19th of November, 1801, in a place called Yarbrough, in the southern part of Belize. But they didn't like the water that they drank because it was what we call canal water. And they moved south to Gills Point, Manatee, and then subsequently to Dangriga, where they established the Dangriga town, where most of us are from. And from there, they spread out to other parts of the south. Interestingly, when the British gave us the right to come to live in Belize, they did not have that right. Because the British had signed, in 1763, the British signed a treaty with Spain, acknowledging their rights to the whole of Belize. And they were only given permission to cut logwood and mahogany, and they brought in slaves. And then when the British saw the benefits from the logwood and mahogany trade, they figured a way out how they were going to maneuver to try and get Belize for themselves. At that time, under the Captaincy General of New Spain, half of Belize, the Sabine River, to the Rio Hondo was controlled by the governor from Quintana Roo in Mexico, Spanish territory. The other half from Sabine River to Petén was controlled by the Guatemalan governor. But you know, these countries declared independence from Spain in 1821 under Simón Bolívar, and it was a unilateral independence. And they were not ready for independence because Spanish left them very little. So they formed what you call the Central American Republic. But Guatemala got so greedy, and they wanted to take away these people's territories, and a war broke out between Guatemala and El Salvador, which subsequently led to the independent nations that we know today as Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. They are separate nations that were formed after the breakup in 1823. Now, we Garifuna people live in these countries, except El Salvador. And our citizenship has been undetermined for many years because we are still citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because international law dictates that once a person or a group of persons were removed from their homeland, they are still citizens of those countries if they keep identifying themselves with that country where they were removed from. And anywhere you go, Garifuna people talk about St. Vincent. The biggest wrong that was done was in 1979 when St. Vincent became independent. They got their independence, had an opportunity to declare that all the sons and daughters of the descendants of the Garifuna who were removed in 1797 are considered citizens of St. Vincent. That declaration is still yet to be made. So we are in Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, St. Vincent, and I would say other countries because we know that the British have removed us to other islands, and we still have some relatives there unknown to us, and even to Europe, England. So Garifuna people anywhere are considered Garifuna and their motherland in St. Vincent, and we have to exercise our rights to those territories where we live, because I don't think we can pack up all the Garifuna people in these different countries and take them back to St. Vincent. So thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you too, Wellington.
This is very explicit. This is very good. I've not heard the story. I mean, so clear and plain like this. I think this is a good thing that we have that today, so we understand exactly what happened, in the 1700s with the Garifuna people.
Yes.
To where they are now. And I think that is very critical when you chart the way forward. At least you know definitely what happened, where you're coming from, what happened, and whatever.
Well, today, in today's world, the history is very important in what we mentioned before, the Maya land rights case.
Yes.
What's very important very extremely important, the most important evidence is the history that they have in occupying those lands. And it's the same thing with Garinagu. We have a history. That's what we have to take to court, our history. And our history shows the continuity, you see?
I remember about 2 or 3 elections ago in St. Vincent, where the leader of the opposition said that if he formed the government, he would have repatriated all the Garifuna people back to St. Vincent. But he lost the election, and I never heard about that again from that time.
Well, interestingly, you're mentioning that it was Joseph Guerrero and myself that went to St. Vincent during that election in 2015.
Okay.
And the prime minister of the country got so scared that he told the people in St. Vincent that if Ramos want land, he need to go back to Belize. And when the prime minister made that statement, he got attacked by a lot of people in St. Vincent for being disrespectful to the sons of people who were removed from St. Vincent.
Yes, yeah. That would have been very respectful, yes.
I just wanted to say that this conversation that we are having here is so important, and the Garifuna Nation is so critical in clarifying a lot of these misconceptions. And this is our mission, you know, because for too long, our people have been abused and misinformed, and people have used the divide and rule strategy and tactic to create confusion. So our mission is to unravel with the greatest of delicacy these lies and these misnomers and so on, and realize that people are often functioning based on a level of ignorance. So when I went to meet with the Prime Minister yesterday, for example, I was given a name or names of people who are negotiating on behalf of the Garifuna people in Belize. And I made sure that I did not say anything negative about any of those people, because we are not to get caught up in that kind of cascas, for want of a better word, but very clearly indicated to the Prime Minister that the President of the Garifuna Nation, designated me to represent the Garifuna Nation, not as myself as an individual, but to be like a facilitator, emissary, ambassador on behalf of the Garifuna people. And that is one of the things that we are clearing up, to function as a team so that these personal attacks on individuals, not that they will happen, but certainly to let it be known that thousands of people are standing above, beside, and with us in this movement that happened long before. And so moving forward, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of catch up. Even this morning, as I was sharing about this program and the press conference tomorrow, someone sent a remark to a friend of mine that the Garifuna Nation is just come here like we just showed up, you know. I didn't even, and as our team, we always say we need to stay focused. I didn't even respond to that because I realized that that comment is made based on a level of ignorance. And therefore, our responsibility is to provide the information. It's going to be a long road, a long haul, because honestly, many of our leaders dropped the ball. And even as Professor Wellington was reviewing the history, and as we were listening to it, you hear that there are people who are left behind in different parts of the movement and the struggle and the process, who are disconnected, who are uninformed, and who will have a perspective based on that lack of information. And that's why we've been having a renaissance and a movement of lifting these facts out to our people. And we know that it is a healing process So I invited the Prime Minister yesterday to be a part of the healing process. And his staff admitted very clearly that they did not know and they did not understand certain concepts. So we are in this place right now where we are identifying common ground for listening. And that's why Mr. President has kept saying over and over that we are doing deep listening. Yet in the process of the deep listening, we also are going to make declarations, as Joe can speak to more than I, about cease and desist, you know, because as we have operated in this level of ignorance, we have exposed our people to abuse and encroachment on our territory.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia, for clearing up Flavius and listeners. We are saying, my short version would be, we are non-partisan, non-sectarian, right? And because our people, are varied in approaches to different things, but the Garifuna Nation is for the Garifuna people, and wherever they are, we will be fighting for their rights. For example, Flavius, in Belize right now, we found out from listening that one of the villages that was called Saint Bite, is not on the tourist map. It's not on the surveyor's map, and the both regimes of parties that were, governing Belize, they dropped the ball. How did that happen? How did all of a sudden the name of a Garifuna village just disappeared? So Cynthia was saying, we're not playing games, taking any party line wherever they exist, in whatever country. We are coming to say, we are the Garifuna Nation, we represent the Garifuna Nation, and that's the line and focus that we will have. You understand?
Mm-hmm. And we have no apologies. We look at the model of the Irish and the Jewish people. I have some friends who say they are Irish and hold Irish passport and they've never gone to Ireland. I find that incredible. And so that is an example. And in the conversation with the Prime Minister's office yesterday, on behalf of our nation, I invited the Prime Minister and his government and his office to use Belize as a model of creating a space of conflict resolution and really dealing with best practices and really listening to what is a long overdue conversation. So there's no organization or no entity at this time that can fully represent the Garifuna people without a process of consultation and participation of our people anywhere that they are, anywhere that we are. So it's a journey that's going to be, it's already been very interesting and challenging in the sense that there are people functioning on the basis of lack of knowledge. The statement, people perish for lack of knowledge. So our focus is to bring forth the knowledge and have the knowledge as a basis for decision-making process. And interestingly enough, it's not a process just for Garifuna people and indigenous people, but also for other cultures within Belize and otherwise, because a question that was asked of me yesterday at the Prime Minister's office was whether the Creole people are indigenous. And I said to them, according to United Nations definition, yes. And so we are all in a process of learning, and based on information, we can make informed decisions and we can identify some points of agreement. And of course, there will be some points of disagreement, but at the very least, a space is being created for dialogue. And the Garifuna Nation, we are taking the leadership in the creation of this space and reaching out to others so that we can be unified in this journey, which will benefit not just Garifuna people, but all the people in our country. To unravel, we are tired of secret meetings and secret deals and secret moves. we are promoting transparency, especially on international principles that have affected our people. Because what is the point of saying that we are a gift for humanity as declared by the United Nations and our people are suffering on the ground? That makes absolutely no sense.
Cynthia, on the issue of transparency, and this is Joseph Guerrero speaking, on the issue of transparency, I would like to add that I don't see the logic in having a relationship with the government of Belize and then everything that is a result of having that relationship is a secret to the Garifuna people that you represent.
Exactly.
And so it seems if you want to improve the knowledge, if you want to improve the awareness between the working relationship between the indigenous people and the outside world, whether it be with the Belize government or internationally, then you must have education process of your people as you're going along. So the secrecy or lack of transparency will just not suffice. It won't work to be effective for what you as an indigenous people want to accomplish. Okay, so transparency, I think, would be the best way to go about it.
Thank you, Joe. That is the way we are. That is the way we are looking at it, and we are moving, and we really have a lot of work to do. The other principle I want to establish, and the president has been very strong about it, is we don't, in the whole line of transparency, we're not into what we call in Belize shush and gossip and say, who say, me say, we say. We are on the principle of focusing on what the issues of urgency are for our people. The Caribbean Court of Justice is concerned that this ruling for the Maya has taken place for a long time, and the actions have not been addressed or respected by the government, either government. And therefore, that is something that we need to pay close attention to as Garifuna people. And therefore, whilst we are ready for dialogue and listening and collaboration and cooperation, the Garifuna Nation is establishing some principles that we are not going to compromise with. We are prepared to identify common ground, and we are also prepared not to drop the ball on certain issues that are long overdue to be addressed.
In the struggle that we are embarking on, a majority of the work that we have to do must be with re-educating our people. Not only re-educating our people, but to give them the opportunity to develop a new sense of consciousness. Because a lot of our people are saying that they are educated, but some of the things that they were told in the schools that they attended, that they actually believe. Even somebody who is uneducated will not believe it because it makes no sense. A simple example I'm going to give you is, in the history of the Garifuna people, they keep saying that we derived as a result of a slave ship in the 1600s, 1860 something. My friend, my people, Joseph and I went to St. Vincent, and even before I landed in St. Vincent, I have military experience. I looked at the terrain of the land. We took a taxi boat to go to Balisao. The water is deep, and the waves are high, like you're in New York City looking at the high rises. How could a ship that sink with people who are handcuffed, all their hands are chained, their legs are chained, their necks are chained, how in the world could they swim ashore and intermingle with native Kalinago Indians? That don't even make no sense. Then we have historical records to show that there were African people trading with the Kalinogos from the great days of Mali and Timbuktu, coming back and forth. there's evidence now that the people in Mexico, that the Africans gave rise to those people. If you look at their DNA, if you look at their structures, everything, we even know that the first people on earth were people from Old Duvajaj, Africa. We have all these evidence available to us, but yet we choose to believe some of the nonsense and garbage that they taught us in these schools to pass an exam. We need to stop. We need to re-educate ourselves instead of our own educational system.
That's so true, Professor Wellington. Even in the sense of what happened recently, this, to me, the simple truth of the Anglo-Guatemalan, listen to the Anglo-Guatemalan claim where the British are claiming lands and the Spanish are claiming land, and they're going to this court. How could that be when we, the Garifuna, were in Belize before they ever decided to make that place a colony? How could that be? How could they make a claim to territory that wasn't theirs in the first place? So we are saying, look, the history shows, and you could verify, Wellington, 1796, you were displaced, genocided, and I like to murder the English language, even though they don't use the verb genocide as a transitive verb, genocide. You were genocided by the British with their lies, and their intention was for us to disappear completely. So that when we got to Rotan, right, the Spanish were there, they were fighting with the Spanish. They were using us. This is how I interpret the history. I don't remember all the dates, but this is how I interpret it. They moved us from St. Vincent to Rotan, where they were fighting the Spanish. So we were to be used like cannon fodder, right? Between two colonies. So we ran to Belize, or we got to Belize, 1801. But before that, our forefathers were scouting the whole area. So 1796, 5 years we had established presence in Belize. And that's why, Flavius, you might like my number, 36. That was the name that was given to our ancestors, like to kind of demean them, right? Well, I love that number because that number verifies that the British did not want us on their little settlement of Belize. They decided to leave us 36 miles away from the settlement. So we did occupy that, as Joe would verify later on, from the Sarstoon to the Saboon. Was no man's land since 1801. And when did Belize became a so-called colony? Joe, you could give the dates.
Actually, Wellington knows the dates better. But what you are saying, Brother Egbert, is Belize borders are defined by not one treaty, but by two treaties, as the good professor himself will say, Wellington Ramos. The border to the north defines from the Rio Hondo, which borders Mexico,
yes,
to the Saboon River that we talk about, which is approximately half of Belize. Later, there would be a Guatemala treaty, the Treaty of 1859, which then that treaty, the 1859 treaty with Guatemala, is what moved the border from Saboon, about the middle of Belize, to the Sarstoon, which is now the most southern part of Belize, the Sarstoon River. That treaty is with Guatemala. And when that treaty was signed, as Judge Conteh in his landmark ruling acknowledged, that's when the colonists came to us. So in the history books, it says Garifuna came to Belize, were welcome to Belize. That's not true. As I just proved by the treaties, the evidence, Belize came to Garifuna and Maya. We didn't go to it. It came to us in that treaty. Professor Wellington.
You're perfectly correct. And one of the reasons why the Europeans wanted to remove the indigenous people from their land and still are trying to find ways and means to do it is because they know that this is just common sense. If you don't own something and you eliminate the person that owns it, then you have rights to complete ownership. And they did, everywhere they went, the Europeans went, they had one plan to eliminate all the indigenous people so that they can take away their land. Not only take away their land, they wanted the natural resources, all the minerals and everything that exists. Because Europe could not have become an industrialized continent, and they couldn't become the nations that they are today without the raw materials and the natural resources that they continue to depend upon, that they extract from these other so-called developing countries. And the situation has gotten worse because now we have national and multinational corporations who are creating governments to work for them. So when these people get into power, they need money, they get money from them, they get power, and they just repay them by taking people's land and giving it to them to exploit. And that is the struggle that we have to face with. We vote, but we don't see no result of the vote. It's a different party, different government, but the same results. We're not making no move. We are stagnated.
Well, I would add to that
to Wellington, that they not only try to remove us from our territory, they also want to rewrite the history that in a way that favors them. Look at how they wrote about when we were removed from St. Vincent. They never said that we experienced genocide. What they said, we were exiled, we were deported. That word genocide was never in their historical accounts. Never. It's only recently that we have been using it because of the evidence. As you visited St. Vincent, you saw the bones, sputtered all over the island. You're right, coming out of the ground, But the British in their very brawny and hypocrisy, right? Do everything. They even went to Belize and rewrite the history. It's thanks to people like the Minister of Lands, Joe, who told us that, we didn't go to Belize. Belize came to the territories that we own. And therefore, the conclusion is, why is it that we are buying land that we own? We owned. Not once owned, we owned. And the historical facts are there to show. And that's what we are about. Cynthia, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the good news. The good news is that we are here and that we are called to change the narrative. And especially since all of these atrocities have been shared, we have more than survived. I don't even want to say that we have survived. We have more than survived to the point where the United Nations Declaration of Gift to Humanity is like a question, is almost like a puzzlement to them as to how it is that we have survived all of this. And I just want to suggest or know that it is based on Garifuna spirituality and Garifunaduä, which we are examining and getting back to that sense of embracing who we are. And I remember when Sister Julie from the Cherokee Nation shared with us that she, in the midst of all that they went through, they made sure that they kept that aspect of their relationship with God as an important part of the journey, because the evidence is there with all these litany of atrocities that have been experienced. The fact of the matter is that in Belize, it is the Garifuna people who educated the nation. The fact is that even in these established churches, for example, the Catholic Church, the bishops back to back have been Garifuna. So I just want to remind us that we need to build on that sense of identity and not be distracted by who said what. Not that those things are not important. They're very important. And in the process, balance it with the strength and the victory that we have also been able to articulate in spite of that.
Yes, I have a question. Belize, as it is now, has many indigenous nations, more than one. And it also have non-indigenous people. And I would assume that the non-indigenous section, they are the ones that are in government. My question is, are the indigenous nations part of the league the legal thing of the company of the country? Does Belize as a country recognize the Mayas as a nation and the Garifuna as a nation? You know?
I'll let Joe go to. I'll let go Joe first.
Yes.
I will respond this way. Not only does Belize have the issue, but I think the whole world. When you say that Black people in a nation are indigenous, people are very incredulous, because the only role that they see Blacks have played in the New World were as slaves. But there are populations that prove, no, that's just not true. But yet that narrative continues to be perpetuated even in the face of facts. Now, in Belize, I know of 3 groups that are indigenous to Belize. That is the border moving from Sibun to the Sarstoon in the south. And in the north, there are indigenous Maya as well from the caste war in Mexico. But we'll leave that for another time. The 3 groups are the Maya, the Garifuna, and the Samba mosquitoes. Now, despite what Cynthia said earlier, I don't really agree Creole people are indigenous by the definition, and let me show you why I believe so. The definition, according to, that is indigenous with special rights, because you can have people who maybe live an indigenous life, but they don't have the special rights because they weren't there when prior to the colony being formed. Now, when you talk about the Creole people, they are descendants of the slaves and the masters, and some were free, etc. Yes, but they didn't live there prior to the colony coming. They came with colonization, not prior to. And further, in the definition of those with the special rights, okay, with the special rights, the collective rights to live in autonomy, the Creole population, I don't believe fits the definition of speaking a distinct language, having distinct spirituality, and distinct family structure, I think, from the colonizing powers. So for that reason, I don't believe that they fit into the category where they have the special rights that say Maya, Garifuna, and the third group, the Samba mosquitoes. The Samba mosquitoes were there, and Garifunaduä had a special relationship, a friendly relationship with the Samba mosquitoes, who are descendants of, Black slaves and native people, similar to Garifuna makeup as well. So those are the 3 groups that I know that are indigenous, but the Samba mosquitoes no longer seem to exist in Belize. Although the last 3 mosquito kings were crowned in Belize, I don't recall which cathedral it was, but they were crowned in what is today Belize.
St. John's Cathedral. They were crowned at St. John's Cathedral in Belize City.
Okay, yeah, that's what was on the tip of my tongue, but I wasn't sure. So the mosquito, they definitely had a presence in the South. And in fact, I have read passages where the mosquito and the Garifuna would escort a ship to keep them safe. They used to depend on the Mosquito and the Garifuna and the fighting forest to escort ships between the Sibun and to Honduras, because those ships were full of, whatever it is that they, produce or whatever it is that they were taking probably to trade. But I do know that the Sambo and the Garifuna, they did used to guard ships going through that way from pirates. Yeah.
I want to, thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Flavius, in terms of the question, I think I want to rephrase it, is the indigenous people of Belize in the government seats, of governance? I would say no. And Wellington and I looked at that at some point in time in terms of representation, by constituency, right? And we think that the Westminster model that we inherited from the colonial British is not serving the purpose. It's serving the colonial purpose. And so the Westminster parliamentarian, whatever system that is controlled by a minority group. And because the Yucatec Maya are not in the seats, the Quechua Maya are not in the seats, the Mopan Maya are not in the seats. And I think we only have one Garifuna person, a senator, right, Wellington? And you were talking about a different type of system where we have representation by the population, wasn't it? I forgot the word you were looking at. Say it again?
Proportional representation.
Yeah, proportional representation. So if 10% of the population is Garifuna, we should be in the government seats, and so on for the Maya Popan, Quechua, and so on. But that's, I guess, a discussion for another time when we talk about how we should have political representation at the highest seat of government.
Actually, I'd like to interrupt at this point, please. President Egbert Higinio, the ILO 169 actually provides that indigenous people need to have their own representation in the government. How it's been interpreted in countries, I believe, like Guyana, they will have a representative, and then they choose who will represent them in government. Now, that's just indigenous people. However, they can still choose from the political, elections, etc. But they can have their own special representation because our needs as indigenous people differ from the population, and the ILO 169, which is already localized in many nations' laws and constitution, says that we have a right to our own indigenous representation, because only we know what we need in legislative acts and how they will affect us. And we should be consulted by the government prior to enacting any laws that will affect us.
Yes, and that's absent from Belize.
That is absent.
In fact, to support what the president is saying, and I'll be straight, the majority of the people in Belize government are Palestinians, and at this current government. And prior to that, we had a majority Black Creoles in the government. So the groups that the president talked about, they're not, they're not involved in the government. And Belize is mostly family politics control. So there are families that control and own the political parties in Belize, backed up by multinational corporations financing. That's straight.
I wanted to make a comment on that, like just reading my mind, cousin. I made an observation in the current government in the early years of mobilization. It's interesting. The now Minister of Lands, his father, Evan X. Hyde, was a mobilizer of the so-called Black Power movement at the time when I was a child, when I was younger. And it's interesting that it was himself, Asad Schumann, and Said Musa who were involved in those early years of mobilization. And actually, Evan Hyde was charged with seditious conspiracy because of doing like what we are talking, the way how we are talking now. That's what he was doing. And hundreds of young people, including myself, followed him, hungry for education and information that he was doing with us. So we have to look at, in this context, this family continuity. And clearly there has been a succession strategy that evolved because the now government include family members. Many of them are family members that evolved from that original grouping. And what's an interesting contradiction is that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Courtney, his father and they were attorneys, were the ones who were not in sync with Evan Hyde and that what you call United Black Association for Development movement. I was just reflecting on that yesterday as we are moving forward, and not to get distracted by any of the characters who would comment on what the movement of the Garifuna Nation is, which is long overdue, because we allowed ourselves to be left out of this strategy of succession movement. And that is where we are at right now in terms of looking at moving forward now. What is the heritage and what is the legacy that we are going to give to children and grandchildren? And Professor always likes to bring it up. So we are going to be intentional in terms of a succession strategy. So we can learn from the royal family in England, where, look, clearly the facts of the matter are, when you look at the money in Belize, the picture of Queen Elizabeth is on the money, so she's on the money, So we have some very hardcore reflections to have. And this is how my conversation went in at the Prime Minister's office, that the Garifuna Nation offers a facilitative, professional, anchored gift to different entities locally and internationally that Belize can be a model to go through what is a very intricate and delicate situation at this time in navigating landmines. These are what you call landmines that we are negotiating and navigating with right now.
And Cynthia, to back up what you are saying, it was Harry Courtney, the father of Eamon Courtney, that brought the charges against Evan Hyde for the seditious conspiracy.
Exactly.
Because he wrote an article, The Games People Play. And all he was saying is that there are some black people in Belize who are supposed to be fighting for their black brothers and sisters, but they are not even doing anything to elevate and try to promote their cause.
Look at that.
That's all the article was about. And then he had to get Schumann and Musa to defend him because they had a movement called the Revolutionary Action Movement, but they were looking for their own fight too. The Palestinians wanted some rights in Belize.
Right.
So they have now because they're the most powerful ethnic group in Belize if you look at it.
New under the sun. So we have to really get into the history and really make the history. We're rewriting the story. We're writing the narrative. And thank you, Flavius and Franco, for giving us the space to be part of this.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Flavius, that your brothers and sisters in Jamaica would also like to know that the leader of the Garifuna Nation in Belize, Mr. T.V. Ramos, great-grandfather of Professor Wellington Ramos here, was a Garveyite. He was the secretary of the UNIA. And I, as a young man, found that out when I was listening to a lot of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and so on. I found out that Marcus Garvey was in my hometown. I was freaking out. I was looking for the place where he had his office. The lady that was living near me, she said, "Yeah, I had my UNIA card."
That's right.
And I went to look at that place, and the government of Belize, I'll say it here, never teaches us that history. So we are here to rewrite it, to retell it in the way how we perceive it. We are brothers and sisters across the sea that was named after us, the Caribbean Sea, we owned it too.
True.
Are you planning to restore that location?
We have to.
We have no choice. This is part of the reparation movement, right? Repair.
In fact,
all the damage is done.
In fact, I can put you in touch with the head of the UNI in Jamaica.
Excellent.
I know him personally.
Let's do that, and it's done.
Years. Yeah, in fact,
he was on the show. He was on the show recently.
Wow.
Yeah, he was on our show recently.
But I know him. I know him personally.
Yeah, let's do that. We need to reconnect.
Yeah, that's done. Yeah.
Flavius, can you allow me? My father, Godsman Ellis, I just feel his presence today. And he wrote a song for the Garifuna people, which I remember singing as a child. And it's called Their Hate for Slavery. And their hate for slavery made them flee across the wide and deep blue sea, seeking for a land and home to dwell in freedom on our own. We Garifuna brave did reach this shore to call it home forevermore. For fathers, all we greet today with songs of love and tribute pay to your love of freedom shown, daring deeds though yet unknown. On this day we Garifuna dance, our mirth today is just by chance. Guerrero, rise from where you are, at home or in some land afar. Tell to all the world without what this day is all about. For fathers and mothers, all we remember now and evermore. Wasn't he a visionary? He wrote that song long ago. My dad did. Godsman Celestino Ellis.
Right. Flavius, you there? He's on mute his mic. So we thank you.
I'm here.
Egbert, Mr. Wellington, Joe, Cynthia, for taking time out of your schedule today and for
thank you.
Giving us this interesting lecture, I would call it today, because it's a knowledge that I myself didn't even aware of. So many lands, that were taken away from you guys, and the office of Marcus Garvey, that was nobody told us anything about even that either. All we know about Marcus Garvey was in Harlem and then back to Jamaica. So we thank you.
A lot of countries.
Two offices, one in Belize City, one in Dangriga.
So we thank you for sharing all of those things with us. And I'm sure that, Flavius and I myself is going to make sure that, we get in touch with the president of the UNIA. Make sure Jamaica, that in Jamaica, make sure that you guys have a linkage so we can work on that restoration.
But Franco,
linkage.
Yeah.
You know what has happened today?
What?
Folks, Franco had come up with a new section for the Real Stuff podcast.
Oh yes. Tell them.
We have named Indigenous Outlook.
Indigenous Outlook. We say we want to start a program in April.
One day per month, but it looks like today it was start.
Yeah, it started off today. It kicked off today.
Yes.
And
so remember, we have a space one Tuesday per month.
One Tuesday per month, yeah. The first Tuesday of the month, right? Mm-hmm.
Indigenous outlook, indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have another platform that you can come on anytime you want with indigenous news, matters, anything at all. So today is a perfect start for it today.
And we can do it in panel discussion as well, because we were thinking of bringing, members also from the Maroons,
Yes. Different people.
Yeah, and different indigenous people as well.
Yeah. We have a press conference tomorrow morning at 8:30 Belize time, okay, to just expand this information to the world.
Okay. Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. And Professor Wellington will be eloquently speaking in March through the University of the West Indies platform. Professor, what date is that for your presentation?
It's going to be next week, Cynthia, March the 30th, maybe the 30th.
It's March the 30th.
No, April the 30th.
No, it's March the 30th.
March the 30th, okay.
Yeah, March 30th.
Okay. So we'll send you that. We'll send you that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll send you that flyer, okay? And so
they can come on, and it can be broadcast for the entire Caribbean.
Wonderful.
Okay, wonderful.
Congratulations.
And just to remind you, Egbert, is that this show will be posted later today on YouTube.
Good. All right.
So we'll send you a direct link to it.
Very good.
So you can,
thank you.
Yeah, so we have that recorded.
Thank you, Flavius. Thank you, the Real Stuff podcast.
Yes, you're welcome every time, Egbert. Anytime.
All right, thank you.
All right, Professor Joe.
Lubafu.
Flavio?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
You had, I think Egbert had asked you if there was any indigenous group in Jamaica.
No, we're in touch with them. We're in touch with the Maroons in Jamaica.
Maroons, yeah.
Yeah, we're in touch with them. We had an interview with them.
Okay.
So you're also in touch with the Tainos.
Yeah. And the Tainos.
Yes.
Yeah, Kasik. We're in touch with Kasik.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was on our show.
Yeah, he was on our show. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's the head of the Tainos in Jamaica.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We're coming. The whole executive is coming to Jamaica very soon, Flavius. Look out.
Oh, wonderful.
We're planning it.
The Ahari,
yes, definitely.
You know about the Ahari, right? The Holy Spirit.
Tell us
the Ahari is Garifuna spirituality, the Garifuna spirituality where
okay.
To the will of God. We surrender to the will of God. We are God-fearing people, contrary to other opinions. We are God-fearing people, and like how others would say, like the Holy Spirit, we believe in we call the Holy Spirit the Ahari. So that's our expression of moving with the Spirit of God. That's what we do. Very strong, and that's what guides us. That's what led me to the Prime Minister yesterday. That's what led and that's why we are talking now on this show. Okay?
Okay, wonderful.
All right, so take care. Thanks.
Okay.
Take care, brothers.
Yes, sir. Yes, kings and queens.
Yes.
All right, brother.
All right, one love.
One love.
Bye-bye.
Cold streets. I'm out here shedding a tear of faith. By my leap of faith is not from the religious bodies, but from my soul that burns every night with a go hot as cold. These countless lines in my head must straighten things up, like light seeps through a crack. I need to out here as night dawns morning, and every day I found a home too risky to leave. Breathe, I sometimes take what is not mine. You may outline your goals in schools, but for me, I see guns.
Yes, Flavius. So it's that time again.
Yes.
Come to another riveting hour and a half.
Yeah.
Another riveting.
Today was wonderful. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
like I said, this is the first episode of the indigenous outlook.
This morning it came to me, last year on the Kwao Day celebration. Fofi said something because we were going through some songs the day of the program, and that song never played. And she said, let's not worry about it, Franco, because that's how the ancestors, the spirit of the ancestors, want us to move. And so
she move in the same way.
Yeah,
the spirit guide them.
And so this morning, when she reached out, she was just sending her text randomly, not knowing that I was up, and that's how the meeting transpired. So going through it, and you came up now with the indigenous outlook.
Yeah,
it just fall right into place. The spirit of our ancestors are truly moving.
Yeah, man. Every step of the way.
And so with that, we want people to know that indigenous outlook, it's going to be more than just, we talking to people similar like this, like a panel discussion. We can, learn more of the culture of our people, the Garifuna, the Maroons, and all indigenous.
Oh, yes.
It's a borderless community, and we're making sure it remains that way. And so we thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule and for, spending time with us. We ask that you join us tomorrow when we do it all over again. We will have with us tomorrow Winston Bell, and from the famous Blacker and Bello duo. So also want to ask you to subscribe, share, like, and tell your friends that this is Real Stuff Podcast, your podcast, a Caribbean base.
Yeah, this is real Caribbean stuff. Yes, for it's by Caribbean people for Caribbean people. All about us. Charting our own course, writing our own story. It's time we stop, reading stuff that are written about us, written for us. We can write. We have a brain. We have knowledge. So let's do it. Let's do it for ourselves. Let's write our own history. We have to.
True.
Our kids can read, and this is the real stuff they'll be reading, because it's from us, not from outsiders who looking in and decide what they must say or what they must do or what they think we are, who they think we are. It's best if we tell people who we are, because we are we.
True. And so, the words from the Garifuna language, our father, Queen Lubafu, will say those words, and then Tafina to take us out.
You lead us song fula. You belong far away away. Ajugwala lebo buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
Whoa. All you gotta do is just speak. One word is enough, and I'm no longer sorrow. I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me know what set me if it could flee. Me have to take away myself. Me have to take away myself. Me have to hide like a thief in the night. Me have to get all the side. Me have to take away myself. I have to take away myself. I have to utilize I weeds. Surely I cleave her this relationship I'm gonna desist. But how can I face you when all I wanna do is just taste you? I know you think I play me, I play you, but soon you're gonna see the light of day. Just relax, don't move an inch.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
May I be take away myself. May I be eyed like a thief in the night. May I forget all the side. May I be take away myself. Take away myself. I have to utilize I weed. Surely I am clean, very.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.